Hi, my name is Dr. Ray Pastor, and today we are going to talk about learning styles. Are they real? So the quick answer is no, they are not real. Learning styles are what's referred to as a unicorn. Unicorn in education. You can see the nice unicorn horse here, the horn, fake horse that is a mythical creature. They are not real. They are just as real as the unicorn. And I'm going to talk about why they are real, and I'm going to show you why they're actually not. Okay, so first of all, we have over 100 different ways, 100 different tests, different learning styles tests. Each of these tests define them differently. So one test will say we'll say that we're visual and auditory and kinesthetic learners, and another one will say we're something completely different. So in the research, the people who like learning styles can't even agree on what they are. Next, we've never proven they're real. We don't have any evidence. We have no evidence that there is this such thing called learning styles. We actually have none. We have no evidence they exist. We do have tons of evidence, though, showing that there is no such thing as learning styles. We have many studies showing they do not exist. We also have tons and tons of evidence showing how people learn. We have a lot of it. So we know they're not real. All right, imagine this. Let's say that we're using the one of the 100 version of tests where learning styles say that a person can be a visual learner. And most of us, when you ask what your learning style is, they say, oh, I'm visual. So the majority of people say that. All right, imagine this. On the left side, we have group 1. And on the right side, we have group 2. Let's say there's roughly 50 people in each group. We're going to do an experiment to prove learning styles are real or not, to see what happens. Okay. Everyone in both groups has been identified as a visual learner. They've taken the test and they're all visual learners. Okay, so group 1, we're going to present them with some content which is just going to be visual. Like they're just going to have images and graphs and charts, only visual information. Group 2 is going to also have the same exact visuals, but we're going to add text to it. They're going to have text. Could be paragraphs, sentences, keywords. They're going to have text. Which group do you think would do better on a problem-solving test? High-level knowledge, the stuff we care about. Which group would you perform better? Guess what? Group 2 is going to perform better every time. It didn't matter that these people were visual learners. They perform better when they actually have visual plus auditory information combined together. Every single time, we've replicated this experiment many times. Same results every time. But why? Why is that what happens? This is how people learn. I'm not going to get into learning theory in depth right now, but let's just go back to that example where we have the visual versus visual and text conditions. There's the multimedia principle, which we have tons of evidence for, which shows people learn better from text and images than just text alone. What does that mean? It means you can tell me your learning style is auditory, you can tell me it's whatever it is, and I can present you text and images, and you're going to perform better than if I just present text alone. And that's explained from the multimedia principle, not learning styles. It doesn't matter what your learning style is. It has no bearing on how I present content. And we have tons of studies proving this principle, showing that it exists. Let's go on. But this is what I hear when I tell people this. But I learn better by doing. I'm a visual learner. Okay, I'm going to start off by saying it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Material needs to be presented by the content type, the learning objective, not a learning style. So I might have a learning objective that tells me that I just need to, write it down and the students need to read it. I might have a learning objective that says they might have to do something. Let's look at an example. Okay, so the way we present information. So you're saying you learn by doing. Okay, so look at in the middle of the screen here, I have this thing called a learning taxonomy. Learning taxonomy is the way that we order content to learn it. So we first start out with facts, like factual information, like what is this? Define this word. What is this term? Then we have conceptual information, which is like putting facts together to come up with ideas and like concepts. And then we have rules and procedures, which are, oh, let's combine those concepts and come up with some rules of like, how do we do things? Like, we know what the letter one is, the number one is, we know what the plus sign is, we know what the number two is, and we know what addition is. So we can say 1 plus 2, and we know the rules, which are how to add it together equals 3. And then we have actual problem solving and transfer, right? That's the important stuff. Like, we're solving problems, like, in-depth stuff, any kind of problem. Transfer information is stuff we can like carry on the job, take with us, pull from our long-term memory. It's the important stuff, right? This is what we care about, is problem solving and transfer. It's what we try to do in school. We want students to be able to evaluate, analyze, synthesize information, problem solving. So we always have to first, before someone can problem solve, before you can do a long division equation, you need to know what division is, right? We're at the facts level. You need to know what numbers are. You need to know how to count. You need to know how to add and subtract. That we're all at factual and conceptual information. So before we can divide and just problem solve, before you can do, you have to know the facts. Okay, so let's use an example here. Another example. Let's use a doctor. If you tell me you learn by doing, I can't say to you, hey, go perform and let's say we have a virtual simulator of surgery, any kind of surgery, you name it. Let's say we have virtual simulator. I can't just say to you, hey, go do the virtual simulator and do a surgery, because you're going to learn by doing. Besides me having to teach you how to use the simulation, you need to know the language of the operating room so you even understand what's going on. You don't learn that by doing. You learn that by someone teaching you. Pick the best way to teach someone operating room instruction, which is probably reading it, watching a video, practicing it. You're not actually in the operating room learning it as you go. You need to learn what a scalpel is. You need to learn how to properly cut the skin to avoid bleeding. What are you going to sit there and just keep cutting the skin on the virtual simulator like 500 times before you get it right because you're going to learn by doing? That sounds like a big waste of time. You need to know how to do it first. I mean, you can't just go and fix a car without knowing you got to first know what a screwdriver is. That's a what is. You don't learn that by doing. You learn it by learning what a screwdriver is. So, and then they have to learn how to cut the skin. They need to learn the steps of the procedure. Then they probably need to watch the procedure several times. Then they go into that virtual simulator and actually start doing. So yes, we actually all learn by doing. It just depends what kind of content you're teaching, though. It depends on the content, the type of objective. Yes, we actually all learn by doing. Yes, we are all visual learners. So however you want to, we all learn by seeing stuff. We all learn by hearing stuff. So you can see I'm saying they're not doing until the end. They have to learn all this other stuff first, which could be taught in multiple different ways to get to that doing part. But yeah, they learned the main part of the procedure by doing it, but they had to learn all this other stuff beforehand. All right. But what about learning preferences? This is the other argument I hear. But I have learning preferences. They are not the same thing at all. First point I'm going to point out about learning preferences. Regardless of what your preference is, like you tell me you're into, I learn best when I can read. I learn best when I can play games. I learn best when I listen to things on my iPod. Whatever your preference is, it doesn't matter. Let me tell you why. I'm going to tell you why it doesn't matter and then where it does. So first, regardless of your learning preference, research has shown that people will perform just as well on achievement tests when I'm doing something that's not their preference. But it's an actual good way to teach the content. As long as it's a good, sound instructional strategy, they'll learn regardless of what their preference is. It doesn't make a difference. And I don't mean learn, I mean they're going to perform just as well as if I did their preference. Now, second, preference can be affected by motivation. So, learning by games or whatever it is might be most beneficial in areas where motivation is lacking. So if you're on the job, motivation should be pay and keeping your job. So that shouldn't matter as much. But if you're talking about a 6-year-old, motivation is going to be a much bigger thing. So you might need to turn to those strategies a little more than you do to the adults. I'm not saying either way have difference, that adults are less motivated or more. I'm just using that as an example. So that could happen. So motivation can play a factor there, but it doesn't matter. It's still not learning styles. Motivation isn't a learning style. It's motivation. Having a preference for learning a certain way might be the only way to get a kid to sit down and learn something. But that's still not a learning style. Very different things. All right? Thank you.